Thanks for joining me today. I'm really happy to have you. Wondering if you could just give a quick introduction of yourself.
Thank you for having me. My name is Bobby George, and I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Carrier.
Could we talk a little bit about the Carrier and your role with the company and maybe the company's mission and vision?
Yeah. So Carrier is a global leader in healthy, safe, sustainable, and intelligent buildings and cold chain solutions. So we have a very rich history of innovation where we have created new industries, and we continue to keep on with that tradition in creating new solutions that matter to people on the planet. My role is the Chief Digital Officer at Carrier, and essentially to apply digital technologies in how we engage differently with our customers, how we optimize our internal operations, and how we create new solutions using technology that can solve some of the problems that we are attempting to solve.
Wow, that sounds like a big role that you've got. Could you talk a little bit about the cold chain technology? I come from a manufacturing background, and supply chain is something that I've lived with a lot. But I'm very interested in the cold chain technology or activity that you're working on.
Yeah. So let me maybe zoom out a little bit and think about, global food distribution and supply. The challenge is about 9% of the people globally go hungry because one of the biggest contributors is food waste. And if food waste was a country, it would be the third largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions.
Just from the waste?
Just from the waste.
Wow.
So that's a huge global secular challenge that we've got to solve. Right? And we are in a unique position in Carrier to solve that. We've got solutions and products that span all the nodes of the food chain, all the way from the distribution, the transportation of products from the agriculturalists to the factories or to the warehouses, and then subsequently to the storage facilities, and then subsequently to the supermarkets where the consumers like you and me go and buy produce. And we've got solutions in transport, road transport, intermodal transport, container transport, also the ability to monitor cargo for temperature accuracy as it transports through the air. So we've got solutions across various nodes of the cold chain. And one of the things that we are working on and a technology that we recently launched is a product called Lynx that then lights up all of the elements of the nodes of the cold chain to then create data and visualization across the entire supply chain of food.
Does that help drive action? So you're highlighting specific, points in time or impacts, and that's helping drive action to solve problems more quickly, or how is that working?
Yeah, so one is essentially, when temperature excursions happen. Right, so typically it is at the handoff points in the cold chain when you hand off from the distribution to the warehousing, from the warehousing to the trucking to the transport across ships and containers. So as we move through the cold chain, if you're able to now create that link where any kind of temperature excursion is alerted, people can take action proactively, preventing that food spoilage from happening. So that's one thing. And then you get into more prognostics around the risks that are associated. So typically there are routes that could have impact on delays, and therefore you can anticipate those routes and you can actually take preventative actions and essentially drive more sustainability as well, because now you can choose the most optimal routes that prevents people from having to go through and optimize their delivery of food supply.
The data that we're seeing globally with data-driven activity is that I think the latest data point is that 92% of these data activities struggle due to cultural, intercompany cultural type issues. But as you say, you're a company probably with the mission of using this technology, maybe a little bit different than the original company.
I'll give you two examples, one internal to the company and one external. So let me give you the external example first. I talked about, we are an important player in the building technology space. So when you look at some of the key objectives that faces us as a mankind, people kind, when we think about how we're going to solve for climate change and how we're going to solve for sustainability, and everybody has made a pledge. around sustainability. The interesting fact is about 40% of the global greenhouse gas emissions come from buildings. Okay? 40% of the total greenhouse gas emissions. And 40% of that 40% comes from energy utilization in heating and cooling buildings. So we have an important role to play. We are an HVAC provider. We have other building technologies that we provide as well in solving for that. Now, when you think about a building and why it is so challenging for people to get after energy utilization of the building is usually we have traditional systems, the legacy building control systems, that really help you to manage a building in a certain way, not based on real-time inputs from the building. So think about it as there are 3 dimensions in a building. There is all the equipment that powers the building. Then there is the space itself. So this is a conference room. You might have an office space. You might have a gym. You might have a recreational facility. So you have a context of space. And then you have occupants. So typically, most buildings are set to operate at a schedule, right? Everything powers on at 8 o'clock and everything powers off at 6 p.m., irrespective of how many people are in the building, right? So if you now start thinking about the power of data and how you can combine space, the equipment, and the occupancy, now you can come up with optimization around how you can appropriately heat and cool the building based on, and that's a huge opportunity to save energy. Now, this is conceptual, right? And it's tough to execute because each building is a snowflake. Everything is set up independently, and there are no standards that govern the ontology of the data surrounding this building. So first, we have to create that. We have to create the awareness of the technology and the solution. But once you put that in place, once customers see the benefit and the value realization, it not only becomes a sustainability element, it also becomes pure economics. You're driving ROI from those investments in investments that you've already done by introducing new technology overlays, which are not very capital intensive to put in place. You have those design partners you work with, and then you continue to propagate that across other customers. So you're seeing automatic benefits, and so the benefit is obvious, the economics are obvious, people buy in, right? So that's the external story. Internally, it's a little different, because we've done things in a certain way all this time. And the example that I'd like to give is the recent challenges in supply chain that we've had. We've had, for a very, very long time, a non-constrained supply chain. You could call up your supplier, and then they would deliver whatever you needed the next day. So it was not exposed.
Right.
Your challenges around appropriate forecasting was not exposed. Now, with lead times around semiconductors and other things, moving up and supply chain disruptions being more or less a constant, you got to get more accurate about how you forecast so that you can level load your plants and it can be more optimal. And we are learning through that in a hard way because now we are learning through the pain in the process. So we had to go through that process of feeling the pain to really realize the value of connecting all these silos within the enterprise. So that's been one of the hard ways of learning how we could use and leverage data. But also the other thing that typically stops or prevents organizations from adopting data is data as an enabler or decision-making process is the sheer task of collecting and aggregating data across the enterprise. For instance, we are a company that grew through acquisitions over a period of time. It's just a ginormous effort to bring data effectively across these systems to make decisions in a timely way. So how do you create that data highway, the plumbing, so to say, and create the fabric for the organization to then make it less painful to then effectively use that data to drive decisioning. So that's been the foundations that we've been putting in place in the organization is how do we create that data fabric across the organization so that then the process of innovation and or decision making is not about collecting the data. It is really about driving value from the data.
So you're gaining speed through the access.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, typically it's about 80% of the effort involved in any kind of data-led effort, which is really about
Is that ingestion?
ingestion of
Okay.
data.
Okay. Interesting. Was that thought process maybe driven based on this larger idea of sustainability that's I think maybe woven into the fabric of Carrier?
100%. So when we think about how we want to affect our sustainability goals, we think about it in kind of two terms. One is our internal operations. The other commitment that we've made is 1 gigaton GHG emission savings for our customers by introduction of new efficient products. So anytime we think about a new product introduction, a new product design, a new product delivery, our R&D investments, our investments in innovation, our investments in our venture funds, it's all with that lens. Is how does it help further that goal that we have set for ourselves, which is a pretty ambitious goal. A gigaton goal is a pretty ambitious goal.
That's I don't even know what a gigaton looks like in that way. But we are similar at AWS. So you're helping sort of the trickle down effect through all of your customers, helping them with their footprint. In AWS, we were thinking in the same way. We've got our climate commitments. But we know that we can't do it on our own. And so I think that there's some similarities there. We're trying to help scale that through common benefits with the companies that we work with.
Yeah, and the other thing about data, since we're on that topic, with sustainability has been around how you measure your progress towards the sustainability goals. In the past, it has been all about modeling. Right, so there are models that are run. If I use
a theoretical
notion of the savings that you're generating in terms of your sustainability goals. Today, it's no more theoretical. You can measure real time what you're emitting from your building, scope 1 and 2, and you can then measure your progress towards your goals. So in the example that you mentioned, AWS and Amazon with vast supply chain, we've been involved in various discussions with your teams on how we can support that with real-time measurements in play. And obviously, Amazon is no stranger to data. So, it is a perfect combination of, I guess, using data to help drive towards a goal with clear KPIs and clear metrics. And it helps.
Well, I think it's interesting that you bring it up that way, too, because we at Amazon, we really want to lead. But I don't know that we can come up with every answer faster than everyone else in the world every time. And so that being able to learn through this partnership of activity, I think, is really, really exciting. And even through these types of conversations, I learn something that I get to take and scale that to the people that I work with. And so it's exciting that I get to hear stories like this, because it just reminds me that there's always that next step that can be taken if we use the data.
Yeah, and our supplier network is vast too. So one of the efforts that we have undertaken around this is we have taken our top 1,000 suppliers and have engaged them in this process of going through an audit on their sustainability practice and ESG practices. And we are helping our suppliers work through some of that and to help us all get better in the process. So I think it is, it's not a one company effort. I think it is the collective that can work towards these goals.
How are you, so when you're working with your suppliers, in the automotive industry, there are a lot of suppliers, and we're all working together for a common goal. When you're talking with your suppliers, even about sustainability, I think in a lot of ways it comes back to a data type conversation. I was wondering if you could maybe share some best practices for those that are listening in, that are looking to drive a new data-driven activity with their own organizations.
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, buy-in. Buy-in, top-down, bottoms-up. Absolutely critical before you embark on the journey. Second, it is an investment that is across multiple horizons. It is not a one and done. So it is really about staying for the long run and figuring out how you can essentially mark your wins along the way. And thirdly, I'd say, most of the things that, from a foundational perspective, that are undifferentiated in terms of driving value from data are the things that you can attack first. Make that simple, make it accessible to all, and create citizen data scientists and data analysts across the organization so that giving people access to the information can unlock tremendous value for the organization that you didn't otherwise think was possible.
Well, thanks for spending the time and sharing your thoughts and ideas with us. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, John. I enjoyed the dialogue.